everybody. Welcome to the next installment of Journey Through John, as we take a bite-sized chunk of scripture and have a brief discussion about that, and then a challenge at the end, hoping that this can be a resource for you to dive into your word on a more consistent basis. This past week we've been talking about John chapter 20, which Jesus has just raised from the dead. The disciples have gone in, they've seen the empty tomb. Jesus has revealed himself to Mary Magdalene, and he's also revealed himself to the other disciples. And then yesterday we talked about how Jesus has revealed himself even to doubting Thomas, which we all can be a doubting Thomas at times, right? And so as we dive into the rest of chapter 20, we actually wrap it up today. And what we see is the reason that John wrote this book. Now remember, John has written this book later on in life. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are called the Synoptic Gospels. They've been written earlier on. John has lived some life, and then he writes his account of this encounter with Jesus, and often refers to himself, as most believe, as the beloved disciple as we go through. And we'll see that actually more next chapter. So we see John, and we still have a chapter to go, but at the end of chapter 20, he writes the purpose of writing the gospel. And John is one of my favorites here because he's kind of to the point, but he sees things and he explains things almost in a hindsight type of view, like we didn't understand. In fact, that's the thread we see throughout John, as I've been trying to point out, is that we didn't get this then, but now, later on down the road, now we have a better understanding. And so John writes the purpose of this book, and that's verses 30 and 31. It says this: "Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name." The whole point of John writing this, the whole point of John taking time to write all this out and to remember all this and to make sure that this gets out there in a little bit different of a spin than the other three Gospels, is that so we understand who Jesus is. The whole purpose of this book is to say, well, as I mentioned that thread, and this is why I want to point it out, really for this couple verses, we didn't get it when he was here. We didn't understand the magnitude of what he was doing or who he truly was. But I wrote this book with a hindsight point of view so that you would understand that he is God and he came here so that we could have salvation and life in his name. And so really, why are you doing this journey through John? My hope is that we would have a deeper understanding of who Jesus is, the magnitude of what he is, and realize that he loves us so much that he brought salvation to us, not just now, but he gives us life eternally, and life here, true life with the Spirit of God within us. And I want us to understand this because I feel like I go through these waves where I get it, and then I don't get it, and then I get it, and then I don't get it. I hope this is a resource for us to really understand that he is everything that he said he was, and so much more, and we still don't understand. We can't plummet the depths of all that Jesus is. And yet, that great Jesus came here for us. And I think it's so easy for us to forget it. So John writes this, and John is this guy that refers to himself as the beloved disciple, and he certainly had a close relationship with Jesus. And we see John even writes the Revelation when Jesus reveals to him things about the end time. And this beloved disciple who knew Jesus so well and was with Jesus and was one of the close ones of Jesus, when he hears Jesus in Revelation, he falls to the ground. And this is why I think the Gospel of John is so powerful. John had the experience of walking with Jesus here on earth, but he also had the experience of Jesus beyond. He had the experience of the truth, the magnitude of all that Jesus is as well. And John had this interesting perspective because of that. And that's one of the reasons I really love this Gospel, because I think he had this interesting God-given insight that he could speak to us as we read his gospel and say, yes, this is what we saw. We completely missed the Jesus of Revelation. We completely missed, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We missed the fact that he was there at creation, and he breathed life into dirt, and that dust became Adam, and that was the first man. And then he formed Eve from the bone of Adam, and then mankind came. That God who was able to do that out of nothing, that God in Revelation came here, and the Word became flesh and walked amongst us, or tabernacled with us. The purpose of John's gospel is to point us to Jesus. The purpose of our life should be to point people to Jesus. So I don't know if you know somebody that knows Jesus but could use some friendship in Jesus. Meet with them. that they may know him more. If you have friends, or if you don't have friends, find somebody that doesn't know Jesus and build a friendship that they may know him. And I pray that through those conversations, you will get to know him even more and fall deeper and deeper in love with Jesus. Jesus is God, and he came here for us. That's your challenge. Go. Go. He's been sent here from the Father. Jesus has been sent here from the Father, and he is sending us as well as his disciples. So go. That's our challenge for today. And I hope it encourages you to search the depths of Jesus, but also to take this message in your encounter with Jesus to others as well. I look forward to seeing you again as we continue our journey through John.